This is Open Door with Vince Robinson. In-depth conversations with people who are making a difference in the lives of others here and around the world. Culture is at the heart of who you are. Know your culture, find yourself on Open Door with Vince Robinson.
Grand Dawning, Grand Rising. Welcome to another edition of Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest today is someone that I have known for well over 40 years. Once upon a time, we used to be at this place called Spats. It was a magical place, and I had the pleasure of being the photographer for that venue, thanks to Skip Gibson. And one of the folks that I encountered back then was actually a duo. It was Nate and Jamie, Nate Simpson, Jamie Webb. And these guys would come in there and they would sing, and the ladies would be mesmerized. And I was there to capture it photographically. And now here we are, some 40 some odd years later, reminiscing about the good old days. My guest today is Nate Simpson. And as I said, he is a singer, and he has been on some of the most prestigious stages in this country. He's been on tour with national acts, and he just happens to be someone from Cleveland. So welcome to Open Door, Nate Simpson. How you doing, brother?
Hey, Vince. I'm doing good. And yourself? I appreciate the love, and the welcoming.
Yes.
Hey.
So we've had a few conversations prior to this interview, and some of the things that you were sharing with me just had me absolutely astounded. Some of the places you've been, some of the people that you've been with. You are one of those people who was able to leave Cleveland and enjoy a certain modicum of success nationally. And so I applaud you for that. You know, there are some who criticize folk from Cleveland for never leaving Cleveland, but obviously you have done that, and you have done it quite well. Talk to us about your entry into the realm of singing.
Wow. You mentioned in your headliner introducing me that we go back several decades. And so my pedigree in singing and in music and in entertainment started when I was about 5 years old. My sister and I used to want to get some candy. At that time, it was penny candy. Sometimes you could get a lot of it, if you had a nickel or a dime. So we used to go around the living room with a cup, and she used to have me singing. And she would be the one carrying the cup around the room with my family and my sisters and brothers, me being the youngest. And that's how I started into it. And then from there, of course, many of us that got this thing we call soul in us come up from singing in church. And I went from there to being a lead singer in the Baby Ward Choir, which was the old Temple Baptist Church, 7500 in Cedar. My godfather, Reverend Eugene Ward, may rest in peace. He was the head pastor there. And I was in his Baby Ward Choir singing lead, Jesus Loves Me, and songs like that. And that's what started my whole career. And then professionally, from the church, there's the great Mama Shirley Caesar. She happened to be doing a tour at the church. And at that time, Cleveland was pretty popular and hot because we had the first black mayor, which was Mr. Colby Stokes. And they used to all go to my godfather's church of the temple. And they had a big event celebrating him. She came in to sing, and she plucked me. She asked my dad and my mom, my uncle and my auntie and my godfather, could I go and sing in her choir? And they said yes, and that started my career professionally, being Little Nate Simpson and Mama Shirley Caesar.
It's interesting. You got the blessing of someone who was anointed, so there wasn't an argument about you going out because they knew that you would be in good hands. So,
yes.
And how old were you when that happened?
I was 6 years old. I was 6 years old, going on 7 years old, and I did that with her for a good 6-7 years, and then I came back to Cleveland, and I would pop in and out with her throughout the years, even beyond that time. But that was the main time when I was mainly with her, when she was doing her gospel concert tours in all the churches and gatherings around the conventions. But then when I came back, I was around 12, going on 13, and then I signed up for a great organization called the Singing Angels. And they're a great performing arts group here in the city of Cleveland, and they plucked from most of the schools around the best of the best vocalists and singers. And so I happened to have made the cut, and then I sang with them for 2 years as well.
I have to ask this in light of the fact that you were doing so much moving around. What was going on school-wise?
School-wise, I was always adventurous. I was always one of the excelling students in school because my brother was, he was gifted in education, and he was right over me and a couple of years older than me, 3 years older than me, and he was like my idol. He was in these things called enrichment school. So I always had my brother to tutor me, and my mom was also a teacher. So education was always first and foremost on their list and on my dad's list. So in school, I was always, trying to please my mom by bringing home awards, whether it be first place awards, second place awards, or even a bronze award, to please my mom. So educationally wise, I was solid. I was able to still get all my lessons in between the tours and the shows and the Singing Angel and everything. And school was always great. And my teachers was just impeccable too.
So given that, was it ever an issue of you doing anything other than singing?
Wow. That's a hard one to answer because I'm the youngest sibling out of my mom's and dad's harem. It's 14 siblings in my family, and I'm the youngest. So at that time, they knew that I was gifted in that area. And so for me, I wanted something different, but they just made sure that I homiletically stayed into music. And my big brother, Milbert, he just definitely made sure. So no, for me, music was everything. And then I began writing music at the age of around 14 years old. I began writing my own songs and playing piano to write my own songs. So no, music for me has been my entire existence. And it is who I am. And
you never really thought about doing anything else?
You dabble in a lot of other things if they are, fortunes for you to make money or to make provisions. But no. At the end of the day, the circle always came back to this is who I am and this is who God made me.
That's a beautiful thing, to know why you're here and know what you're supposed to be doing, and then to be able to use your gift to affect people in a positive way. I think a lot of people, well, I'll say many people, they kind of take the arts for granted, specifically music. But music is so, can you imagine what a church service would be like without any music?
I can't imagine life being life without music, because it's a universal thing that crosses every gender, every culture, every age bracket. Music is the one universal language, and it truly, truly is, no matter what culture, that can soothe a person's spirit. Mm-hmm. And it just does what it does, and I'm so thankful that I'm a part of it.
In light of the fact that you came up in the church and you had the lineage that you did, was there ever a conflict within you between the music of the church and the music outside of the church?
My godfather used to, him being the pastor of the church, he used to make sure that I stayed grounded in that. But because my family, my mom and my dad and my uncle and auntie, they sired churches all around the region from Ohio to Texas. They planted churches. So I never got away from it. And it was never anything where there was a division between this genre of music or that genre of music. As long as I respected my wording in what I was saying. And another thing, it was brought to my attention by my brother, who was a pastor. He said, "I don't know no babies that ever been made off of gospel music."
Okay. Hey, give Luther some credit for what he did for the world.
So going all the way back from Sam Cooke, he was one of my heroes coming up. Johnny Mathis, hearing those great artists and pioneers as a little boy. With my big brothers and my uncles, Roberta Flack, these artists, they put an indelible impression in my life that you can do music and do it in a beautiful way without, insulting any particular genre of music, whether it be gospel, pop, rock, rhythm and blues, jazz, classic, because vocally, I'm gifted with a 4-pitch octave vocal range in perfect pitch. And that was something that was really highlighted when I was in the Singing Angels coming up, where they would always have me singing like you're in the choir in the cathedral, and where you got that one little boy who was always singing the real high notes. Mm-hmm. That was me. And it never really dawned on me, other than just being respectful, because the way I was raised in my family, just solid upbringing.
Wow, that's amazing. 4-octave range.
Yeah. They told me it was perfect pitch. They used to have me these things called metronomes and sound pitch things. They would do key volume rings that they would hit, like you would hit in and have some higher, and they would test your range and your pitch. And before the technology came out, now you could do all that on computers, but at that time it was metronomes and things of that nature.
Okay, so you talked about the education that you got because your mother was a teacher and your brother tutored you and so forth and so on. Was there ever a point where you studied music?
I didn't study music. It was a gift. But then I began teaching it because it was a gift. And because I was always around musicians and great musicians, whether they be, organists or keyboard players or guitar players or drummers, or, even when I did work with the Cleveland Orchestra, I did that when I was 22 years old. And no, the answer is no. I didn't go to school for, not even School of Arts. I just grew up around it all the time. You remember a guy named Robert Gideon?
Yes.
He played Benson on the TV show Benson, and they came from the Caramel Theater. So I was involved with that whole scenario coming up in drama and theatrics and things of that nature. So again, I was always around great musicians, and all the way back from, I really have to say, because she was really the one who really pushed me into entertainment like none other. And that was a lady by the name of Mrs. Ross. She used to have these great talent shows back in the day. And I was singing at that time with my brothers. Everybody wanted to be the Jackson 5, the Silvers, the Osmond brothers. And we were like that as well. And I was the lead singer, and we won a couple of Miss Ross talent shows coming up. But I always had these songs in my head, so I wanted to do solo. And she wound up really pushing me towards that. Her and another gentleman by the name of Chuck Conway. He caught my ear. And that's how that whole thing really blossomed. Great DJs that was on TV, radio. Wayne Dawson back in the day. Just so many of them. Lynn Tolliver, the great DJ Lynn Tolliver and Bobby Rush. Just so many of them. They pushed me. So no, I didn't have a problem with any part of my music career. Mm-hmm. They was always supportive of me.
So in light of the fact that you didn't study, how was it that you ended up teaching music?
I wound up teaching harmonies. That was the first thing I was doing. A lot of people wanted to have good harmonies, same as like what Luther did, Mr. Vandross. He started out by doing commercials, cutting jingles for companies to do their jingles on radio and TV. And that's how I started doing it. And then it turned into being a harmony coach and then a vocal coach. And of course, from there, you have to know the scales on the piano, all 5 different, levels of octaves. So it started from there.
Okay. And you also mentioned songwriting. So were you actually writing the notes out, or was it a matter of you taking what you did on the piano, recording it, and then finding another process to capture the music on sheets?
Bingo. It was that route. I would sing the melodies. I would play chord structures to make sure that I captured the essence of it. Go from there. Then you take that scenario, and then you find the most best and incredible musicians that you can to mimic what's in your spirit and what you're trying to get out. And Cleveland was just so inundated with so many of them. There's just a plethora of them, that it was not hard to find musicians, especially being a good singer. Many of them were looking for a good vocalist like myself. So having to beg people to work with me at that time and do that was never begging. It was pretty easy to get people to come and work with me. Everybody from way back in the day, like I said, Miss Ross talent shows, a lot of those guys like Willie Ross, Kevin Bias, Marty playing bass, Rick Howard, Moose, Raymond Howard. These guys started bands like the Daz Band. And I do want to say something on record, since I slipped up and mentioned his name, Moose Howard, Rick Howard. A lot of people don't know that he was actually the writer who wrote the song Money, 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 Money that the great OJs sing. Mm-hmm. Rick Howard wrote that song and never got credit for it. And he wrote it one day. We were writing songs together on the back of his porch at his apartment. And that's where that song came from. And he happened to be also a sound engineer and knew Mr. Walt Williams of the OJs. And somehow or another, Rick got void of the credit on that song, which is going to go into my documentary that I'm doing. But that being their biggest song ever to this day, and they're still getting credit and money for. Rick is no longer with us, and his wife Cookie, she deserved some kind of compensation for her husband. Well, it hasn't happened.
I'm glad you cleared that up, because I know someone else named Rick Howard. I'm like, I didn't know that he wrote music. I know he had a proximity or an affinity to music, but this is a different Rick Howard. As a matter of fact,
this Rick, he wrote bass. He was a bass player.
Oh, okay.
And he was an engineer for a lot of different people around Cleveland.
Okay. Can you talk about some of the songs that you wrote, either for yourself or for others?
My first big song that I ever wrote that got national attention and radio play was a song called Hey, Mr. DJ. Wow.
Janae did that song.
Yeah, Janae. Janae was my cousin, Sharon. She was out in California at the time. She wanted to pursue an acting career, and she went out to Hollywood and was doing her thing, and that's where she ran into John A&M, and then she became a part of the group. She took my song at that time. I was 16 years old, going on 17, and I gave it to her as one of the songs. Well, I didn't even really give it to her. She took it. but
so you're not getting the royalty checks, huh?
Right. No, but she still lets everybody know when they perform the song or whenever I was the writer of that song. And that was the first national song that I got credit for. And then there's just been so many other artists that I've worked with. Bobby, Whitney, there's just so many. Sheila E., Jennifer Lopez, just great artists that are doing their thing.
Mm. So it sounds like you, in addition to being a songwriter, you were doing some producing as well.
Yes, that was my whole thing. I wanted to learn producing and production because there were some great studios coming up: Time Track Studio, Great Track Studio, Beechwood Studio, Landmark Studio coming up, and a lot of artists that would come through Cleveland, all the way back from Stax Records back in the day when I was a little puppy, Mr. Otis Redding and all of them. We used to sneak and try to watch them, and my Uncle George Clinton and Boosie Collins and these people sneak into the studio as best we could to watch what they was doing. One of the first ones that I really got a chance to do some production on was Kool and the Gang. We were recording down on 28th and Carnegie at the studio, and they were recording Ladies Night at that time at Time Track Studio. And I was in on that recording session and just watching what was going on and learning, the instruments of the actual board and how to do that. So yeah, production was always my greatest desire. And then, just working with other producers around the Northeast Ohio and in Detroit, and in Philly, Damian Washington, Hiram Hicks, all those guys, Drew Hill. You get a chance to really get pretty good at it.
Mm. You mentioned Ladies Night, and you just dropped a gem on us. I mean, who would have ever thought that mega hit was recorded right here in Cleveland?
It was recorded right here in Cleveland at Time Track Studio.
I have vivid memories of being at Kent State University. I think the year was probably 1979. And that song, they played that song at the Institute, and the ladies just went crazy. And go ahead.
No. Yeah, I mean, what was not to like about that song?
Yeah, and then Lil' Kim, she resurrected the song probably sometime in the 90s with a few other artists on that song. Sampled it, and then it took on another life as a result of that. So, wow.
Yeah. Working with Bootsy was one of my favorite artists that I've ever worked with, was Bootsy Collins. I had the privilege of working with him in a group called The Deal with Babyface and those cats, and D, who was actually the leader of the group. And who else was out there? A group called SOS Band and a group called the Isley Brothers. They were all on tour together, and I was privileged enough to be a part of that production team and that tour car when they were on tour for those many years.
Wow. SOS Band was actually part of a tribute that was for Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis at the Pittsburgh International Jazz Festival.
Wow.
Year before last. And it was amazing, but they sang over tracks that night. It was a little disappointing to see Jimmy Jam standing up there holding the bass and not playing it. I mean,
the question will be why, though. In that kind of situation, I always question just a phenomenal producer and somebody like Jimmy Jam, who's played with the Time and Prince, and so many artists that they produced, from Miss Janet Jackson to whomever, and then just to find out that they did something like that. It probably was the budget of the actual event that made that happen. If not, then I would probably say it was the sound company.
Well, the excuse that they had, and they didn't say that they were singing over tracks, but I'm standing on the stage, so I see what's going on. I mean, if there ever was a case of faking the funk, that's exactly what was happening in that moment. But they hadn't toured for a long time. This was their first show after years of not being on the road, blah, blah, blah.
You talking about SOS Band?
Well, it wasn't SOS Band. It was Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and they brought a bunch of the folks that they produced on stage with them. They had this Japanese singer singing Janet Jackson's parts, but there were.
How did that go over?
She actually sounded better than Janet, if you ask me.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I mean,
don't say that. Don't say that too loud. That's the part we're supposed to edit on this interview.
well, I give props to Janet for being a great entertainer. She's a
Yes.
phenomenal dancer. She's an actress
Yes.
in all of those things. But
Yes.
she's no Aretha Franklin by any means.
No, Janet is a theatrical actress, vocal performer that needed specific producers to captivate her tone and her sound and then wrap music and instrumentation around her. When she first came out with the Rhythm Nation tour, one of the guys that was doing choreography for me, Mr. Terrence Green, he was also the director for the Cleveland School of Arts for their dancing. And Terrence could do ballet, Terrence could do street, Terrence could do whatever with his body any kind of music. And Terrence was working with me. We were working for setting up my tour. And then Janet's people came and stole him from me, and he became her assistant director on her Rhythm Nation tour. But I knew then that a lot of her stuff was also not live performance. A lot of it was programmed. And that taught me a lot about the difference between having actual musicians play live in conjunction to, sitting up doing something on a MIDI and then sequencing it and, going back and forth. It sounds good. A lot of artists do it to this day. Usher is doing it now, and just a lot of artists that are out there, they're doing a lot of sequencing right now because I like that intimate feel though, with a real band, with the real horn section, with the, just that power, like tower power. I just like that feel better. To me, it's more natural.
Yeah. It's really interesting too, how tied we are to recordings, so much to a point where if it doesn't sound exactly like the record, we think something is wrong.
Well, I was just talking to the band about this because we're coming to Cleveland off of the tour. On the 31st, we'll be in Cleveland. And there's a difference between a studio recording and live performance. And a lot of people, live performance, you get one shot with that audience. It's either all or nothing. Either they're going to feel you, it's live, they can see you, they can touch you, they can, all the essence of, your aura being in that room with them. Studios, if you mess up, you can go back and do it again. You could do it again. You could do it again. And sometimes it takes away. And that goes back to what I was saying about Boosie. He taught me the quality of live performance. He's just, he's not running around stage when he's performing. If you ever see Bootsy, he pretty much stays in a 3-foot radius of the microphone almost at all times, unless he's just wanting to get out and do something maybe with the keyboard player or the drummer. But he taught me how to control that space that you're in, that 3 to 4 foot radius. And if you do it right, it don't matter whether it's a club or whether it's a stadium, you can control that audience and they can feel you.
I'm just thinking about his time with James Brown, because James did not want to be outshined by this 6'7" with a big bass in his hands.
Oh, well, Sly had the same problem with Larry Graham, but whatever. You can't stop who you are. You can't stop your shine. It's who God made you, and sometimes as cream rises to the top.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. So you mentioned having an uncle by the name of George Clinton. Did you ever have the opportunity to do anything on a stage with him?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, I brought him to Cleveland for an award ceremony that we started with another great player. May he rest in peace, Mr. Ed Sparks. And we had a beautiful 24-hour concert over at a club called, two of them. One was at the Agora, and one was at forget the other club there was, but we did video. That was when VHS was real hot and everybody was recording VHS before this new digital thing. So yeah, I have all those recordings that we did, and the award ceremonies, and even to this day, Uncle is back out on the road. He just now started back out on his tour, and I'm going to do 4, probably no more than 4 cameos with him as well.
Okay. Well, your uncle got me, man, because he was out there saying this is the last tour. I'm at a family reunion in Virginia, and he was at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on a Saturday, I think it was, and then he was going to be in Columbus the next day. So I flew back. I drove down to Columbus. I convinced them to give me a press pass. I came in, I shot the show, I recorded it and everything. And then now I look up, George is still touring. He's still out there doing his
thing. Right now. He's touring right. He's not going to stop. But the beauty of it is, it's because of his health. Mm-hmm. He has found redemption with his body and with his health now. And it is so, man, I'm so proud of him, so happy for him, because his health was declining from all those years of touring and, the drugs and, the things that people do just to want to stay, relevant and, be able to do all those shows and everything that you're doing and all that energy that you're giving off. Some people, and then in that particular set coming up, it was, if you wasn't doing it, you wasn't happening, you wasn't popping, so, and this goes all the way back to, the Wilson brothers, the Gap Band, just so many of those great, bands, even, everybody knows. So, even Whitney, we saw all of it, when I handled, New Edition Home Again reunion tour, there was a great production company called the Heyman Brothers. We had New Edition Home Again reunion tour with all of them, from Johnny Gill to Bobby Brown we did 32 shows from here to Seattle, Washington, all across the country. And, you got people, on one end, you think that they helping you. And then on the other end, they really trying to get in the hotel because they're trying to sell you something or get something. It's just part of this thing, entertainment. It's in every area of entertainment and even in corporate America.
Mm. So you mentioned Mr. Clinton's issues with health and the toll that touring and that lifestyle took on him. You've also shared with me that you had some physical situations that you had to overcome. Do you mind telling us, what you went through and how you recovered from it?
In 2015, in March, I got a phone call from one of my dear friends who's one of the most prominent doctors at the place that I'm sitting in right now called Cleveland Clinic. And my partner happened to be also my doctor and my best friend, and Dr. Fred Harris. And I got a call from him. I'm thinking that he's calling me so we could get together and, set up a Monopoly game with the rest of the fellas, And he told me that he didn't like a scan that he saw on my chest. And come to find out later on, after going through other biopsies and everything and all that, it wound up being a lung cancer. So that was 2015. And then 2016, after going through all the mechanisms that my insurance and everybody could provide, and we had the surgery to remove it. Went through everything from chemo to radiation, and 2016 was the surgery. So this is like 2025 now. So 9 years later from there, I'm cancer free, right? So you go through all your only oncologists and everything, but it was, we was trying to figure out, why did I, of all people, catch a lung cancer? And at that time, I was buying properties and rehabbing properties and doing that kind of thing on top of music. So we thought maybe it could be melanoma. That's, all the stuff you get from doing house asbestos and everything. And it wasn't that. And I was always into health. I was into the health club business, working out, training, self-defense, martial arts, weightlifting, no drinking, no drugs, no alcohol. I was, I'm a mom and daddy's boy. I'm a church boy, so none of that. And come to find out, they called it environmental cancer. And they said, tens of thousands of people have it. They don't know it. They just happen to have caught mine and caught it early. And it was in latter part of stage 2, first part of stage 3. And come to find out I was in it even shocks me to this day, a 95% survival bracket. And a 5% survival bracket. And 95% of the people that had the cancer that I had, where it was at, don't survive. So I just began to really being a strong advocate for the Cleveland Clinic Foundation, and working directly with their upper executives and doctors, and they kept me alive. And it's kind of ironic because I'm sitting in Cleveland Clinic right as we speak, and my older brother is getting some work done right now because it's suspected that he may have cancer. So it's a full circle, and it's like, wow, but he's in the best place, and here I am now, helping all kind of other patients, and that's what I do.
In terms of helping others, it might be helpful if you shared with us what enabled you to recover, aside from what the doctors did.
Well, there's a thing called metabolics that all human beings have. It's part of our DNA. It's part of our chromosome. It's what makes us. It's what the fetus is when it's in the womb of the mom and the placenta that feeds us. So everything that we are comes from that bag. No matter how old we get, no matter what part of the planet that we're on, that genetic is embedded in us through our mother. And so once you tap into this thing called metabolics and you start studying it, you'll learn that everything from the U rays of the sun to the food that we put in our bodies either has a good effect or an advantageous effect. And hospitals are hospitals. They are institutions, and they can only work in certain guidelines medically because they're structured and sanctioned by the FDA and by governmental. And so I started studying ecumenical medicines that were not just in the United States, medicines that were coming from China, medicines that were coming from Australia, medicines that were coming from Africa, medicines that were coming from India, medicines that were coming from the UK, medicines that were coming from Canada. Because each country has their own restrictions into what they allow the citizens of their country to use. And so I saw that metabolically, and I'll give you a heads up. There's a book called Dead Doctors Don't Lie. That is a great book to read because it's a journal of many doctors, great doctors, that were taking notes about their patients over many, many years, and some stuff that they were hindered from the hospital to do because they were up under institution. But they wrote it in their journal that they saw great effects in cure. So whether it be a hospital institution or not, metabolically, you have this information. The other one is called Forks Over Knives. Forks Over Knives is a documentary of all the best doctors on the planet from different countries. They have what they call a Geneva Committee where they come together 3 times a year. And they say, well, why is there no breast cancer over in India? Why is there so little colon cancer over in this country? Why do they not have any of this heart attacks, so limited of them here and so much of them over in this country? And they tied it all in metabolically, and they tied it all in genetically to what we're eating. And because we have this thing called FDA in the United States, we have this thing called pesticides, irrigation, agriculture. And in order to serve a mass population in that kind of irrigation, you have to use certain pesticides in order for your crop and irrigation to grow. So therefore you could get it to the population. Now, I'm going to give you an example. When we saw the war with Russia and with Ukraine, and then with Israel and Hamas, we saw that they were able to take food in masses and transport it, but they were hindering the people from getting the food to starve them out. But the food was what they needed in order to live. In that food, the question would be, how are they able to get that food so quickly while there are so many other people that don't have food, they're starving and homeless? And we saw it happening. It's because that we don't have a shortage of food. We have a shortage of food that can be released. And that food, when it gets sprayed for pesticides and keeping creatures and stuff out, that's the toxicity that's happening in a lot of hospitals. And hospitals are designed to make money. They're revolving doors like prisons. Hospitals and prisons have revolving doors because hospitals are designed to make and give you medicine so that you can continue to come back. It's what they do. So when I'm talking to patients as an advocate, I'm telling them metabolically what they should be doing away from the hospital, not to fall out of the guidelines of the doctors and the help they get, but to also know that these other studies are there. And if they do their own homework, a lot of things they can cure themselves. So you have to have this kind of information in order to have the power, in order to change your body genetically and metabolically so that it can heal itself without pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals are good, but they should never be utilized long term because the body is not designed to absorb synthetics. That's a whole nother thing. But yeah, so when I'm speaking on behalf of Cleveland Clinic and I'm speaking on behalf of patients that have had any kind of cancer, especially lung cancer, they have a beautiful place called Taussig Center, and I talk on every floor over there. You have to realize that a lot of this information you won't get in the hospital. You have to do your own study. And if you study metabolics, it'll tell you everything, because metabolics goes all the way back again to the placenta, what's in there, what formed you, what made your bone structure happen, what started making you have teeth, what started making you have limbs, what started making you have fingernails, and why they exist so long. Even after you're gone, your nails, your teeth, they last. So the question is how? And that's because they're infused not just with a white blood cell, but they're infused metabolically from the bone chromosome from that placenta. And it has the power to heal any human being. One last thing I want to say. You can inject cancer, and we found this out, into a seal. You can inject cancer into octopus. You can inject it into a shark, a sea urchin, and it won't. I'm talking about the most toxic cancer, and it won't harm them. And the reason is because they have a high level of what we call alkaline in their genetic DNA metabolically, and no cancer can survive in alkaline. And so these are things that we know now that you can cure it if you go down that route. But because you're in an institution that they make money, and this thing called insurance helps this thing have a revolving door. So
yes,
hopefully that answers your question.
You're speaking my language, and it's kind of ironic for me because my grandfather died from lung cancer, and his final place of treatment was the Cleveland Clinic. He was a cigarette smoker, but he gave cigarettes up, but he was also a construction worker. So I'm sure that over time he was probably exposed to some things that kind of caught up later with him in life. You mentioned the documentaries Dead Doctors Don't Lie, or you said it was a book, and you also mentioned Forks Over Knives. And there's another documentary called Hungry for Change.
Yes.
And there was a Cleveland Clinic doctor in that, Dr. Esselstyn. And what he did was, there was one of his patients was a sister that worked at Huron Road Hospital who had high blood pressure and diabetes. And he put her on a vegan diet for 30 days. gave her some exercises to do, shared meditation with her. After 30 days, she was off of her meds.
That's right.
So, yeah, there's so much to unpack, but you're steeped in. Just gonna say naturopathy.
Absolutely. So vocally wise, as a singer, my thing was I had lung cancer, my upper left lobe, and they took it out. I went back and looked at the video of the surgery, and it's about an 8-hour surgery. And they do everything from taking your heart out, putting it on a machine, and while they're surgeon. And I had great doctors. Dr. Sanisco was my surgeon at Cleveland Clinic, and just a brilliant man, and actually a good friend to this day. I mean, we talk to each other at least 4 or 5 times a year on the phone, away from the clinic, just privately, calling you, 7:00 at night, whatever. So when you're dealing as a vocalist, as a singer, and you have something like a lung cancer, it's like, either you're going to get yourself together or you done, because that not only affects you physically, it definitely affects you mentally and spiritually, that you're going to lose your purpose for even being here, and your gift. So I really, really locked in with some of my partners. I don't know if you know of a guy named Dr. Lane. He's over at Metro Hospital. He's one of the top surgeons and doctors over there. He handles a lot of colon and pancreas stuff. And Dr. Harris is at Cleveland Clinic. These same people, when the pandemic happened, they were the top doctors working with Governor DeWine. And these are my partners. But they were the top doctors on the staff for Governor DeWine, especially in the African American community or the urban community, or the metro community. They were the ones sending out all the pamphlets. So I got a chance to see their journals. And some of these journals, 28, 42-page journals about what they were seeing. And it was astonishing how they were tying it in. All this was tied into the metabolics. And I was like, wow. So some people are talking about they don't want to get the shots. Some people are getting the shots, and then they got all the news coming in that hospitals are overflooded. They're shutting down, and they having to have incubator hospitals, etc. But at that time, I was in my cave. I was in my cave. I isolated from everything and everybody, just so I could stay tied into metabolics of what I was doing and work on my breathing. Work on my breathing.
I could only imagine what it would have been like for you to even fathom not being able to sing after it had been your life's mission and your life's purpose.
Oh, bro, I wouldn't even want to be here with y'all. I wouldn't this interview wouldn't have happened.
No, I was going to say it was the same feeling that I had when I thought that my computer had been stolen, and and just the thought of all of that information gone, it just made me numb. And then I had.
Oh no, you said you hit a sore part in my body. I was on a plane, and I was going back out to Hollywood because I was recording out in Hollywood, and at this time I was working with Missy Elliott, and so I was going out there to the Bernie Grubman studio, and my phone cracked. And at that time we had BlackBerry phones. I had everybody's number in there, even Donald Trump. I had everybody's number in my phone, and my phone cracked. And, I didn't know that BlackBerry was not designed in the United States. It was designed up in Canada. So in order for you to get your phone repaired or anything lost, you had to talk to BlackBerry people, but they were up in Canada, their headquarters. Man, I lost every number. I tried for like 5 years to get the numbers out of that phone. I even had a judge give me a subpoena. And I couldn't get it, man. I lost everybody's numbers. So I get it. Talking about crashing.
Oh, well, I actually had a computer that crashed during the pandemic, and I went to different places to try to recover the data from the hard drive, and nobody could do it. So trust me, I completely understand it. And what made it even worse, brother, is I had cryptocurrency on that computer.
Oh no!
So, and it's money that I'll never get back because it was where it was.
You was in the crypto game. Oh,
I'm still in the crypto game.
Well, then you got to teach me, man, because and don't leave your brother out here lonely, man.
Well, it's right now is a really good time to get in because $4 trillion in the crypto markets is going to expand to $100 trillion in a relatively short period of time. So if you want to get in,
I believe it. I believe it's the new world order of currency.
It is.
So I'm all in. Just show me the way. That's all I need to know.
Okay. Well, we can have a conversation after this conversation, and I can put you on game. All right.
So guess what? This last night, I get up. I wake up because I got a song in my head, right? So I get up and I'm starting to write down the lyrics to this song, and I'm like, you're going to write another song. You're sitting on top of well over 220, 30 songs. Just put together 3 or 4 different albums with the music that you already have.
Mm.
Yeah, that's the right thing.
There it is.
So I said, okay. So I got to writing down songs. Okay, these first 10 songs, that's one album. It is. And then I'll start listening. And I don't go to sleep till about 3:30, 4 o'clock, because I'm up cataloging these songs and writing out these. Okay, if I'm gonna put out these CDs, so I got 4. I thought I was going to do like 3. I got 4 CDs packages that I could put together of songs that I've written and sung and produced that are all nice. So that's privately. That's where you and I are gonna have this conversation as well away from this interview.
Well, I also want to talk to you about the documentary that you're working on, because we only have a few more minutes left and I don't want to leave this out of the conversation. So talk to us about this documentary.
The documentary is called The Music Empire of Cleve the Land. We're going to nurse it, and we've done the homework with our librarian department to go back all the way to, we're going to go back as far as 1962, when the first Kennedy assassination happened, and what was going on at that time in Cleveland as well, because a lot of people have it documented a lot of other places, and I wanted to document from a music standpoint, how did this affect and how did it change, and what beauty came out of the ashes of that whole situation. And so then I discovered that the great Mr. Otis Redding had a concert that weekend on a program called the Merv Griffin Show here in Cleveland, and a Dorothy Full-Time. And the great Mr. Sly Stone was also on that show card, and that Mr. Otis Redding was from Stax Records, where a lot of the great musicians were before Motown, before a lot of these other it was Stax Records. And he had left from doing the concert that night, headed up to Buffalo to do a concert over Lake Erie, where his plane crashed and killed 5 members of his band, which at that time were the Barcades.
Right.
And so that's the beginning of where we're going to start. And then we're going to matriculate and work all the way through to all the phenomenal actors, entertainers, and artists that came out of Cleveland, from Cleveland, and went national and even international. And then I get a chance to focus on the Nate Simpson project at the same time, and all the artists that I worked with and I helped groom. Everybody from Steve Harvey, A.J. Jamal, John Hinton, all these guys that used to open up for me, because they were comedians and they would open up for me when I was doing my tours and my concerts. And we're still friends to this day. And, all of them, from, the OJs, as I said, the LeVerts, just so many talents that have came out of here. Melba Moores and, just Regina Bells. And, So what I sought out to do I said that I needed to get a big budget, and I wanted my budget to be no less than $2 million. And so in order to do that, I needed to start requesting support and endorsement letters so that I could take to corporate sponsors.
Okay. So we're going to have to look forward to seeing that, and I'm sure you'll keep me updated on that.
Yes.
I'm also going to get your social media plugs and contacts when we get off the line, because we got about 15 seconds left of the broadcast. So I thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, bro. Thank you so much.
We'll look forward to the next episode and perhaps a longer interview. Thanks for joining me. And for those of you who are listening, as always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your best day. Peace.